So here we are at issue number 2 of Ironheart. This book is interesting. It's okay. It does the job, but it still feels like Eve Ewing doesn't quite have a grasp on exactly how to tell a story in a comic book format. I was curious though about the performance of the first issue. I looked up the order numbers on Comic-Con, and the orders were middling, only about 41,000. I know all those issues didn't sell, so I'm guessing the actual sales are somewhere around 25 to 30,000. For a book that got a ton of hype last year when it was announced, I honestly expected the numbers to be higher. Like I said in my previous video about the first issue, the book is good. It's not the best comic book ever, but it gets the job done. It did take a ridiculously long time for it to come out though, and you can tell that Ewing is still figuring things out. The same thing is true with the second issue. This book just came out in mid-January, but issue 1 came out in late November. With the amount of lead time this book had, there's really no reason for this book to skip a month other than people going behind Ewing to clean things up. This is the reason why you don't give new writers who aren't familiar with the medium a full series on their first outing. You give them a couple of backup stories, and then some random one-shots or fill-ins. Then you give them something small, something you're not worried about. Then, once they've shown what they can do, you give them what you're touting as a flagship title. It's not that Ewing is terrible, it's that you can see she's still figuring things out on the page, and it slows down the story. But first, let's talk about the art. Luciano Vecchio does the full art on this issue, although there is a special thanks note to Mike Deodato Jr. and Stefano Caselli. Maybe they helped in some sections or just gave some tips or something, I don't know. The art is good, it flows well, there's some great shots like this one of Ironheart getting shot at, nice and dynamic. Some of the pages look a little rushed. You can see it mostly in the backgrounds, like here where the stuff on the shelves looks unfinished. I'm not expecting full renderings of cans of soup, but this is a little lazy. There's not much action in the story, but where it does happen, it's okay. Really, that one shot that I showed of Ironheart is the most dynamic one in the comic. This issue isn't really about action. Actually, I'm not really sure what it's about. Issue 1 left off with Riri discovering her new suit's AI is based on her dead friend's personality. You'd think the second issue would pick up from there, since it's such a major revelation, but no. The second issue starts with a young Riri in high school trying to open her locker. She can't because someone stuck gum in it. I don't know how that works unless she left it unlocked, but okay. Bullies are gonna bully. She can't get in, so Precious shows up and takes her to the office to get security to unlock it for her. The girl's real name is Deja, and she's kind of what this issue is about, but then not really. Then we jump to Boston, present day, where this store manager is being made to pay off gang members. Riri apparently knows a black guy whose name is Mr. Jean, and she comes in for a visit. I'm guessing he's a character from the previous series. I didn't follow all of it, so I'm not sure. Doesn't really matter though. Riri runs the gang members off and she says to Mr. Jean and Ming, the Asian dude who actually owns the store, that she wishes she could protect them. She talks about giving them an iron signal or distress button to call her. Ming is all for it. Jean thinks it's not a big deal since Riri can't be everywhere. I get the point of the scene. It's meant to show that Riri cares about people and wants to help. But here we are with 2 subplots within the first 10 pages, but we still don't have a main plot or any follow-up from the previous issue. This could easily be a first issue. That's not a problem in and of itself. Comics used to be all-in-one stories. It is a problem though when the last issue ended on a cliffhanger, and so far we haven't addressed that very important cliffhanger. Riri's dead best friend Natalie is now her suit's AI. You'd think we'd need to see her talk about that. Instead, there's a drive-by. The thugs she ran off come back and announce, "You forgot who owns this neighborhood. This ain't a game." Riri freezes as she remembers her stepfather and best friend being shot in a drive-by. That's when AI Natalie chimes in to remind Riri to do something, so she destroys the car and then flies off. The weird part here is the amount of damage her suit takes from this. This armor is based on Chitauri armor. Her previous armor can handle entering the atmosphere, but this new armor gets damaged by bullets? Really? I mean, it's nice to see her struggle, and the scene of her riding a train back to MIT because it breaks down is actually kind of funny. But you'd think the armor wouldn't short out and start smoking just because of some bullets. We get another scene of the MIT dean inviting people into Riri's lab without telling her. She shoos them out and then repairs her armor. Now, this would be a good point where Riri could talk about her new AI being her dead best friend. We could have a flashback showing the follow-up from the last issue. This is a natural place where this could and would happen in a conventional comic. Instead, AI Natalie informs Riri that Deja, the girl who helped her in high school, has gone missing, and Riri goes back to Chicago. There's no talk about the weirdness of having your dead best friend as your computer's personality. We need to see her talk about that. It's really odd, and you'd think Riri would at least freak out about it a little. Nope. She just kind of accepts it and moves on. Like this scene. We go from MIT to the South Shore of Chicago, where Riri sits on the couch with Xavier and her mom, because when you have boys over, you definitely want your mama sitting right between y'all, where they watch a movie while Riri Googles news articles about Deja. And apparently there's just nothing about her in the media. I mean, this doesn't just kill the momentum of the story, it backs over it like it's driving over Miss Daisy. Stay tuned, because it spends the rest of the issue trying to start me up, but never quite does. You're welcome, Zach. I mean, Riri's supposed to be so concerned that she's looking info up while they're hanging out. It just doesn't look like she's taking it all that seriously. All the people she knows who could help her, she never bothers to contact. All her tech skills are wasted on looking up news articles, something the AI Natalie could have done in seconds. It really comes down to Ewing wanting to write this dialogue exchange, which isn't bad, it's just long and doesn't need to be there. So there's this ad for this Councilman Thomas Birch. Yes, the Birch Society. Yes. You were doing so well, Eve. You just had to sneak that in there, didn't you? Then Xavier says, "This guy, we talked about him in civics class last week." No, you didn't. There's no civics classes, not even in private schools. So, please. So apparently Birch's opponent got doxxed, and Riri starts speculating on who did it when her mama realizes that Birch is the guy Deja was working for when she went missing. And that's when they realize they finally found the clue. Riri says, "Sure is. The kind of detail I was hoping to find in the news, and didn't. I should have gone to the source to start with." First, nicely done ending the sentence with a preposition. Chicagoans totally do that. Second, how is this a clue? What connection is there between Birch and Deja that would make you think he had something to do with her going missing? At best, he may have doxed his opponent. Doxing someone is a little bit different than kidnapping them. So where is this connection? I don't see it. I also don't see how or why the media would fail to report that someone working for this well-known councilman went missing. That might not be the lead of the story, but it would definitely appear in someone's write-up, especially if they were detailing when Deja went missing. I know this sounds like I'm nitpicking, but I'm not. It really makes no sense to suspect Birch of anything other than being an obligatory straw man and a typical politician. But this clue just leads Riri to the Daily Plaza. That's right across the street from City Hall, and I have to say, it looks really clean. I go past this place all the time, it should be messier than that. So Riri is looking for something out of the ordinary and spots a kid who steals a phone. She then goes on this chase where the kid hands off the phone to other kids, and none of it makes any sense until I realize that this may be the way Birch's opponent got the info stolen. But it doesn't matter, because I got completely lost. So, somehow these kids run from Daily Plaza to Millennium Park through the subway. The blue line, which is what the kid runs into, doesn't connect to Millennium Park. First of all, it's too clean to be the blue line. I mean, there should be cracks on the wall, it should be dark, and where the fuck are these doors? I've never seen these before. Seriously, I know Luciano probably ain't from Chicago, but Eve, honey, you're here. Take some pictures and send them to him. So these kids run into the blue line, and then somehow end up by the Bean. How? The blue line is on Dearborn, so they'd have to run past State, Wabash, and then Michigan Avenue to get here, underground, because we never see them come up to street level. And Ironheart is still able to track them. How? How do you even know what to look for? Then she spots this kid running, and he's literally on the train tracks. That's like 4 blocks south. You realize how long those blocks are. He'd be running for 5 or 10 minutes just to get there. So he's been running for half a mile, and Riri, who can see him running, hasn't caught him until he gets on the train tracks. She can fly at supersonic speeds. How is she not catching him? I just don't understand. Anyway, she catches him and finds out he's been made to steal the phone. But before she can get more information, she gets attacked by cyber ninjas. Apparently they're the ones behind making the kids steal the phones, which makes no sense. They're powerful enough to manhandle Ironheart, informed enough to know her armor's weaknesses, somehow, and skilled enough to teleport by fire. Why do you need the kids? You could steal shit and no one would even know you were there. It wraps up with us seeing the kids being scolded for not bringing a phone, and then we see Precious passed out in a cell. And I still don't know what the hell happened in this comic. There's no main plot, just a bunch of subplots, and we never got a conclusion to the first issue's cliffhanger. As it is, the book isn't terrible. It's written okay. It's just that there's no real story. I'm not seeing how any of this stuff is connected. I'm sure Ewing has somewhere she's going with this, but I'd like a map because I'm lost. I feel like I'm in Boston again, wandering around trying to find a straight street so I can figure out the cardinal directions. What's the point of this story? What are we being told about Riri? What does this have to do with the villain she fought in the previous issue? What does this have to do with her new AI? What did Deja mean to her? Why is she so concerned? Is she going to date Xavier or not? And will her mama get out the way? These are all the questions I'm left with from this issue. There's potential there. It just needs editing. It needs focus. You have to pick a plot, stick to it, and build the subplots over time. Your main plot seems to be about the 10 rings. You've got 2 subplots just started in the first issue, Xavier and AI Natalie, and now you've added a third, Deja, but we've lost the connection to the main plot. There's too much going on here. We've completely jumped past big things like Riri dealing with her AI being her dead best friend, and her being invited to join a villain supergroup. Come on, that's storytelling gold right there and you're just stepping over it. This is a really good argument for why Marvel shouldn't give people who haven't worked the kinks out of their writing a major solo title. This reads like an okay backup issue, not a main story, and that's really weird since y'all took an extra month in shipping, meaning y'all probably had an additional month to work on this issue. You gotta up the game. If I were grading this, the first issue, solid B. Second issue, C+. You're losing me. You gotta clean it up. Focus. Distill it down to its core points and work from there. And honestly, Ewing, if the editors are just singing your praises, find somebody else to check your work, because they don't know what they're doing. You want to know what's going on with Ironheart? I guess you could pick this up, but I can't blame anyone who wants to give it a pass. It's not bad, it's just not as good as the first issue. But what do I know? I'm just some guy.